Yep.
All right. Well, hello everyone. My name is Dhruv Singhal, and I am the founder of Open Gears, as well as a sophomore at Mattia Valley High School in Aurora, Illinois. And I am excited to get our third webinar running today. Thank you for everyone who attended the webinar today, and it's great to see that many of you attendees are interested in the speaker today. Just one quick announcement before I introduce the speaker. On October 12th, we will host our fourth webinar with environmental scientist Samantha Panic from the Morden Arboretum, and she will come and speak about the environmental science field in a webinar. So after this event, feel free to sign up. Now let's welcome Tanveer Mittal, who is a junior data science undergraduate student at the University of California, San Diego. Today, he will share about what data science is and how to pursue a path in data science. And he is excited to share his experiences and advice with us. So everyone, please welcome Tanveer with a warm virtual round of applause.
Hey everybody, my name is Tanveer. So yeah, I'm going to basically go into what data science is, how you, if you are a high school student or someone looking to pursue data science, how you could do that. And I'll also talk about a little bit more about my experiences, what you guys can learn from them. And then feel free to if you guys have any questions, just feel free to interrupt me after a slide or something like that, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. But also at the end, I'll, after I'm done with this presentation, I don't want to overload you guys too much information. You guys can ask me any questions you guys like. So first thing at least that we like to talk about is, just a little bit about me. So currently I'm a third year student at UC San Diego, where I'm majoring in data science. I live in Naperville, Illinois, and I'm sure the majority of you guys do as well. I grew up here before I went off to college, and I also went to Naperville Central, if you know where that is. After I graduate from UCSD, I want to become a machine learning engineer or a data scientist. And I more specifically am really, really interested in the intersection of data science and linguistics, which is called natural language processing. So that's the field at least I'm really, really interested in. And, when I'm not studying or coding or whatever, in my free time, I like to rock climb, play tennis, play video games. Although I haven't been able to rock climb as much recently due to COVID-19, but yeah, maybe after that we'll be able to start that again. So yeah, so basically this was a headline from the Harvard Business Review back in October 2012, where they called being a data scientist the sexiest job of the 21st century. And there's a lot of reason for this. You see, when computer science started becoming way more popular, right? These software engineers would build out applications, websites that basically change how humans and how we interact with technology on a daily basis, right? So as we as users interacted with all these applications and websites more and more on a larger scale, companies were also gathering lots of data on how people use these applications, right? So when you have all this data, it's really, really difficult for a company to, make the most use out of it. And that's where data science comes in. So if I had to summarize data science in one sentence, the best description I'd probably be able to give is it's the scientific process of extracting value from data. And you do that through basically combining computer science and statistics together to be able to basically ask questions about data, use analytics and computing techniques to then answer those questions, right? And when you do this, right, when you conduct data science successfully, this can inform business decisions, this could uncover new insights, or even reveal more problems that you need to solve, so that way you might need to have to go back to the drawing board completely and then resume your scientific process, right? So one good example is if you talk to any finance company today, right? I had the experience of working with American Express, and I know other people who've worked at other companies like Bank of America, for example. And a lot of these companies basically started saying that they don't want to make a single business decision that isn't informed by data, because it is extremely powerful to have data science and data backing everything you do. Yeah. So this is a very common Venn diagram that people use to basically describe what data science is and basically it's the combination of math statistics, computer science, and business domain expertise. And but what domain expertise means is if you're, let's say, a data scientist working with biological data, right? It's that data is kind of useless unless you know, basic biology and how to interpret a lot of that data, right? Like you need to understand, like if you're working in genetics, you need to actually understand genetics to be able to make use of that data. So that's what domain expertise is, right? So you can see that, you know, if you combine computer science and domain expertise, you are basically left with what is a traditional software engineer. Um, if you combine domain expertise and statistics, you are left with what is typically like a data analyst or a statistician. Combining computer science and statistics is a machine learning engineer. And the perfect combination of all three that lies in the middle is a perfect data scientist, basically. So yeah, um, and then this is another headline from the University of Michigan's newspaper, where basically they were the first school in the entire United States to announce an undergraduate data science program, right? And before this time, you can kind of compare data science, how it emerged, similar to how computer science emerged in the 1960s. So if you guys didn't know how computer science became like a common thing for people to study in college, in 1962, Purdue had basically created the first computer science department, right? But this was very, very controversial at the time because many people argued that applied mathematics was just too similar to computer science that it didn't even make sense to, um, create a whole nother discipline or create a whole nother department or create and designate entire professors to this one field, right? So they argued that computer science shouldn't be a thing. We should just stick to applied mathematics, right? So the same kind of controversy surrounded data science in its early years, where many people argued that there's no use for data science because statistics is exactly the same thing. But more and more schools kind of hopped on this bandwagon. University of Michigan was the first, of course, to create the undergraduate program in data science, followed by my school, UC San Diego, then Berkeley, then Carnegie Mellon, and many others after that followed suit. So that basically creates a much easier pathway into data science for many of you high schoolers. So typically before an undergraduate data science major was a thing, most people would have to basically have both a bachelor's and a master's in some sort of STEM field. It doesn't have to be computer science. It doesn't have to be data science, but it has to be in some STEM field. So a good example of this I can give is I had one professor who she did all three of her degrees from Johns Hopkins, okay? But she did biology, and then specialized in genetics, right? So she didn't major in computer science or she didn't major in statistics, but after she completed her PhD, all in genetics, she eventually then became a data scientist at Google, right? So the idea is you basically can major in something else like that, building domain expertise in some sort of realm, right? So that enables you to basically be a data scientist in that specific area. Like I know people who are combining data science with music, combining data science with um, urban planning, all this sort of stuff. So you have a lot of flexibility if you take the traditional path where you can do both a bachelor's and master's and then go into data science. Now the modern path, which is more like what I'm trying to do, is you only want to go into data science using a bachelor's degree. So more and more schools, like almost every year, like a bunch of new schools start announcing that they're going to start having a data science department and data science degree offered. So that's exactly what I'm doing, which is just pursuing a data science major at UCSD. But if your school, for example, doesn't have a data science undergrad program, right? You might be wondering how you might want to, actually pursue data science. So there's two ways. You could either suck it up and do computer science or study math or statistics or whatever, and then pursue data science in your master's. Or you could actually do a combination of things in your bachelor's. You could do, you know, you could do computer science with a minor in statistics or a double major in statistics. You could do computer science with like applied math, or I know people who've just majored in just applied statistics and then minored in computer science and then are now becoming data scientists. So you have a little bit of flexibility, but the thing that employers and companies will look for from their data scientists is that they have a strong programming background and also really, really strong statistics and math background. So even if you want to become a data scientist, but your school doesn't offer it, there are options for you. And then the alternate path is that's actually becoming really, really popular in the Bay Area specifically, is lots of different companies have started creating these boot camps where basically it doesn't matter what field or what if you even have a degree or whatever your degree was, right? You can basically go to like a 6-month boot camp in the Bay Area or in other areas of the US as well. This is kind of gaining a lot of popularity where they will literally train you and teach you how to program, teach you basically all the practical skills you need for data science, and they'll get you industry ready in 6 months. So this has become really, really popular for a lot of tech companies. If you don't know, there's one company called OpenAI. If they've made a lot of headlines. They were basically this nonprofit AI research company that was founded by Elon Musk, and they basically what they do is they actually take all sorts of people with no degrees, and then will literally train them to be proficient in machine learning, and then eventually do machine learning research with them. So that's a good example right there. Yeah, but do you guys have any questions so far?
Do you think a business degree would be helpful as well?
Yeah, definitely. Like the thing about data science is that you literally can like wherever there's business, there's data. Like in this world right now, right? So you can kind of study almost any field and you will most likely have to be looking at data anyway. So like um for example, like a data scientist can become a business analyst, right? And also if you have a business degree and you study enough statistics, you can also become a data scientist. So like it just depends on like what you do. Like it isn't just about your degree.
Interesting.
Yeah, anything else, guys?
Yeah, really quickly. So we probably have gone over this, but just to get a better understanding, what would be like the best combination of like degrees to be a data scientist? Like, is there any certain combination that would be the best?
I mean, so like obviously the best combination would be, a bachelor's and master's both in data science, right? But obviously, like depending on your schools that you're going to, right, that isn't always ideal. So the biggest things you probably want to touch on is no matter what your degree is, you really, really need to have a strong foundation in computer science and statistics, right? And then a plus would be you also build some sort of domain expertise, right? Like for example, with me, I'm trying to go into natural language processing, right? And as a result, I've also, on top of that, taken classes in linguistics, trying to build that domain expertise. So that way, I kind of specialize in this area. So like I know other people who also want to be data scientists will build domain expertise in like biology or like other things like that. So it's not just about your degree, of course, but you really just have to make sure you kind of cover all your bases and get that foundation.
Great, thank you.
Mhm. Yep. So anything else, guys? Or we can also ask questions later, up to you. Okay, so I'll just continue then. So right here, I've kind of created like a timeline of like at least my internship and job experiences I've had so far. So basically, it all starts with my junior year of high school. Um I had a family friend who worked at this legal tech company called iManage. So there, I was an R&D intern. And what I would do is I'd basically be doing basic computer science work, do testing software. It was actually here where I actually gained exposure to machine learning. And before that in high school, I was really, really set on trying to become like an electrical engineer or computer engineer. But it was at this point where I actually kind of got practical knowledge and learned about what machine learning was. And then from that point on, I decided I really, really wanted to do machine learning. And then eventually decided to go into data science because that's where most machine learning is done. So that experience was like really, really helpful for me, helped me decide what I wanted to do. And that kind of led me into what I did next summer, which was I basically worked out of this robotic startup that was in Naperville, working out of the Nokia building, if you know where that is on, I want to say by Deal Road. Yeah. So basically there we were working on a system of 4 robots that work together to basically lift up shipping containers, and this would all be done autonomously. So for them, I was working on building machine learning algorithms to detect the corners of these containers, so that way the robot can properly align and then lift up the containers. And then I also did some other odometry and kinematics work for them. After that, I eventually went to school. I had to quit this job as a result, and and then at the end of my first year, I was able to apply to a position where I was working at the UCSD Department of Medicine in UCSD Health. So there, I was working directly in the financial analyst team as a data programmer. So they actually wanted me to basically set up an entirely new database. Basically, at that point in time, their department used data that was in a central data warehouse for the entirety of UCSD campus, right? But the problem was they had many different problems using that data warehouse, and they actually just wanted to take whatever data they wanted and put it on their own database that they can administrate themselves. So my job was to create that database, was to design a database schema, which is basically like it's creating a design for the database, basically, right? And then I worked with the financial analysts to create that design and also prepare data for them and do some other analysis for them. Eventually, I also had to quit this job because I wanted to come back home for the summer. And that led me into where I became a machine learning instructor at ID Tech Camps. If you're kind of unfamiliar with what ID Tech Camps are, they're these tech camps that basically are for high school students where you can just pay a bunch of money and then go to college campus for a week and learn about technology. And if you guys, regardless if you guys are doing data science or not, I highly recommend you guys look into them as when you guys are in college, or even if you're in high school right now. It's definitely a really, really good experience if you're a high schooler to learn, and
Did
also a
you
really
do
good experience. Oh,
did you
sorry.
do the ID Tech camp yourself? Or
I
did
didn't
you?
do an ID Tech Camp myself. I didn't actually even know that they existed. Um, but they're like really, really useful if you're a high school student looking into program into any type of technology. They teach you a lot for sure.
Okay.
But even as a college student, I highly recommend you guys look into them as like a good summer job. It was a really, really fun experience. You guys also learn a lot, teaching programming. And then after that, my second year of school began, where I applied again to do some online positions and eventually got part of this lab on my campus in the bioengineering department, which is called the Cardiac Mechanics Research Group. So I'm actually still working there right now, part-time. But for them, I'm a software engineer where I'm working on a database application and also doing some machine learning work with basically analyzing MRI images for patients' hearts. So this database application basically stores patients' hearts like MRI images of patients' hearts along with other clinical data. And this application is like, we just actually rolled this out and deployed it over this last summer. So now it's actually being used by the UCSD hospital as well. And it's also funded by the American Heart Association. So like, we're still working on it, updating the application, doing all sorts of stuff. So that's like been really, really cool work to do. And then in spring of my second year, actually earlier this year, I also joined a startup where I was basically working a second job as a machine learning engineer. So this startup called InfoPost was basically a startup where they wanted to use AI to detect fake news, right? So I worked on a lot of natural language processing here, where I was building models to basically quantify how politically biased news articles were. I was also working with things like such as sentiment analysis. One of the things I also did towards the end of my time there was I actually built a Facebook Messenger chatbot that would actually verify claims related to COVID-19. So basically, you could ask the chatbot a question about COVID-19, right? And then it would search through scientific articles that are already published related to the virus, and then verify if that claim was true or not, basically. So it's like a fact checker. So that was really, really cool too. Eventually, I also had to quit this job because then my internship with American Express had actually started. So I had a really, really fortunate experience being able to intern at American Express this past summer. And if you don't know what American Express is, it's like it's a financial services company that obviously provides a lot of credit cards to millions of customers all over the world. So for them, I was a software engineering intern where I got to work on the database engineering team. So for them, I was working on creating a computing cluster where I was deploying databases to that cluster. I was deploying machine learning models to that cluster. And then I was also working on a data migration project where I had to basically migrate data from one database to another because of some licensing issues that they had. So this was like all done online because of obviously due to the COVID-19 pandemic but was like great experience. So yeah, do you guys like have any questions about anything I've done so far?
So you said that at iManage, your internship at iManage, that's where you started to become interested in data science and machine learning,
Yeah.
right? Like, was it like you did a lot of machine learning there? Like, were you exposed to it during your internship?
Yeah, so basically with them, right? My project was not related to machine learning at all. I was actually working on like a that was basically like Dropbox for them. But basically, while I was interning there, the chief data scientist there decided he actually wanted all the interns to do like a bunch of data labeling work, which is basically so for machine learning to work, right? You have to tell the machine learning algorithm like how to exactly classify certain data, right? So you have to have like basically what is a labeled data set. So what they actually wanted us to do is they wanted us to go by hand and go through a bunch of documents and label their data set for them. So this is kind of a lot of like grunt work, and they just let the interns do it. But the chief data scientist at the time actually like took the time to explain to us why what we're doing is really, really important and how like their machine learning algorithm worked. And like just listening to that entire lecture basically like got me really, really interested into machine learning, which then made me do some like self-studying on my own. And yeah, the rest was basically history after I like started studying data science.
Interesting. Also, you've been also like mentioning a lot about natural language processing. Could you explain what that is?
Yeah, so basically, so obviously, right, for data science, a lot of data science is obviously, analyzing numbers and getting the most out of that, right, using statistics and mathematics on all these numbers. But a lot of data out there in the real world is also not just numbers, but it's also a lot of just text, right? So there's a whole subfield in data science related to how do you actually get the most out of like text, right? So for example, if you work at like Amazon, right? Customers leave like almost hundreds of reviews on all their products every day, right? But you also want to use like these reviews basically are data, and you want to get the most out of this data, right? So you want to be able to not only tell like what products are being reviewed really, really well based on like what kind of reviews people are writing, or like things like that. So like what natural language processing is just basically like a subfield in data science where where you're creating techniques and creating methods for handling text.
Interesting. Yeah. You've been also talking about machine learning too, so I was also going to ask you if you could explain briefly what machine learning is as well.
Yeah, so machine learning is basically all about creating basically models or algorithms to predict outcomes from data. So like a good example of this would be if a lot of you guys have probably studied like linear regression, which is basically like you have a bunch of data points, right? And then you draw a line of best fit that fits that data. And then you can use that line to then predict, um, like if you wanted to predict height versus age, right? You could basically use that line to come up with a prediction of what a person's height might be depending on how old they are. So that's basically like a clear-cut example of machine learning where you want to use data to then predict what something might be.
Right.
Mm-hmm. All right. So real quick, actually, this is like the last slide of my presentation. So I'll like quickly go into this, and then after that, we'll just have full Q&A. But if you guys are also like really, really interested in learning machine learning, there's lots of ways to do it. In fact, a lot of people on the internet, especially people like Elon Musk, for example, really like to argue that college is like, overrated. You actually don't need college when like so many free educational resources out there, right? And look, in fact, like a lot of my, in fact, a lot of what I've had to learn for a lot of my, to get a lot of my internships and positions, I've not learned in my class. Like, I've had to do a lot of self-studying on my own through websites such as Coursera to be able to get to the point where I am. So if you guys don't know what Coursera is, it's a really, really nice website where you can take online courses from literally everything from art, photography, all the way to like machine learning and data science, like what I've done, right? So there's lots of great courses offered by like universities such as Stanford and many others. So I obviously can't recommend it enough. There's also, if you guys don't know how to program as well and want to get involved in programming, there's also a website called Codecademy. That's where I learned how to program in Python in high school. It's really, really easy and user-friendly to use. And you can also not only learn how to program in Python, but you can learn how to program in JavaScript, C++, Java, all sorts of things. If you guys don't know what Kaggle is, I doubt many of you guys actually know what Kaggle is. But Kaggle is actually a data science website where you can compete in data science competitions for money. And on top of that, they also like a lot of people publish lots of like free to use data sets on this website. So if you, for example, know like just a basic amount of data science and you want to just get some experience like working with a data set, playing around with it, maybe creating a basic machine learning algorithm or doing that sort of stuff, you can just go onto this website, find a data set that you would like to work with, maybe like a data set about movies and Netflix or Amazon reviews or whatever, and then just mess around with it. So like it's really, really good for, finding data to work with for projects. And then Medium is another really, really popular one. So if you don't know what Medium is, it's actually a blog site where people have created all sorts of journals for like anything that's like from art to data science to cars to video games to whatever. So like there's a couple of different like data science journals on this website where people are always talking about what kind of projects they've done in data science. Also like, they'll talk about like what are the new groundbreaking algorithms that are being created in data science. So it's like a really, really good way of keeping up with what's going on in the industry and like, how you can apply it to your own work and projects. So a lot of really interesting stuff there. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for what I have. But you guys, like obviously I covered a lot, but if you guys have any other questions, maybe if you guys want me to go over something again that I maybe didn't make clear, like feel free to ask.
Yeah, guys, feel free to ask any questions. Just either text them through the chat box or just unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah. Also, if anybody like is interested, you guys can also add me on LinkedIn, or you could also take my email if you guys have any other questions. So up to you.
All right, well, I guess nobody has any questions, but I have questions. So first I was going to ask is, do you think that all these fields equally benefit from data science, or are there any specific fields that benefit the most?
So as I said, like where there is data science can be done. So like right now in the current industry we have, I don't think there's not a single company that isn't collecting data that data science can't be done on, right? So I feel like almost every industry can benefit from data science to an extent. But obviously you're asking also what are some of the biggest industries that data science benefits from? Obviously, there's technology. But I think definitely the one that benefits the most is definitely advertising, you know? Like it's definitely the most lucrative out of all the industries related to data science because there's a lot of money involved in it. It's a lot of data being collected on from people, right? And a lot of this data, like if you just looked at this data, right, it's really, really hard to like comprehend what this data is even basically, right?
Right.
So like a lot of the work that you need to be able to that needs to be done to recommend people the right ads and all this sort of stuff. Like to be able to do like work with that sort of data, a lot of people have to have like PhDs and using like the most cutting edge of techniques.
Mhm.
So it's like it's definitely one of the most like rapidly advancing fields where data science is being used, and also definitely the most lucrative.
Interesting. Also, I was gonna ask you too. Um, your high school courses and extracurriculars. You could talk about those as well. How did those shape your interest? The courses
Hmm.
that you've taken and the extracurriculars that you participated in during high school.
Yeah. So basically in high school, as I mentioned earlier, that I was like really, really interested in computer engineering and electrical engineering. And a lot of this was because I took like some basic programming classes like AP Computer Science, and I also take like an electronics class in my school there. And then that also got me interested in doing like being a part of the competitive robotics team there. So I was really, really involved in that. As well as also involved in Business Professional of America, if you don't know what that is. I was basically competing in C++ programming through there.
Nice.
So I knew from like the beginning of high school that I definitely really wanted to go into something related to technology. And I was definitely way more interested in the hardware side because that was where I did most of a lot of my work in electronics and robotics. And eventually, towards the end of high school, I basically shifted that focus towards machine learning.
Mhm. What do you think are some important technologies or software languages that we should learn right now in order to be proficient in the data science field?
Yeah, so a couple, I mean, definitely Python is like the biggest one. Like, the nice thing about data science is that like so many people online and in the data science community have created so many great tools for data scientists to just really easily pick up and then do all sorts of complex work with, right? In the past, if people wanted to do machine learning, they'd have to program like the entire machine learning algorithm themselves, troubleshoot it, and then finally get it working on their own data set, right? But now what we work with in the real world right now is where you can just import us like a quick data science package in Python, and then be able to get like an entire machine learning model working in like less than 10 lines of code. Like the tools and the ecosystem that exists within Python are so great for data science. So like I couldn't recommend enough that you guys would learn Python if you wanted to go into it.
Mhm. Any other languages, or do you think Python is just the most important?
It's the most important for sure, but if you wanted other skills to learn, I'd recommend maybe taking like AP Stats in high school. Get yourself a nice background in statistics. Other things could be learning how to use SQL, which is basically like a language for um, querying data from databases. That's also important to an extent, but you guys will also learn that in college if you pursue it further. Um, I'm trying to think what else could be useful. Um, yeah, I mean the biggest thing would be learning Python and then learning like data science packages within Python for
Did
sure.
any of your internships teach you coding in general? Yeah, did your internship experiences teach you any software engineering skills?
They definitely taught me like software engineering skills. Like I can't recommend like you guys in high school and in college and even in high school should look for um research and internship opportunities. Like it's one thing to program on your computer at home and it's one thing to program like in a real industry environment because things operate differently, right? You need to learn how to program in the real world, which is like you can't just program something right and then immediately push it and expect it to work immediately,
Yeah.
right? Like you'll in the real world you'll have to like uh push your code to like some server, right? And then your boss or your boss's boss will then read through your code, make sure it's all right, and then finally approve your changes, right? So getting used to like that kind of workflow and collaborating with other people is like actually what I learned from my internships. Most of my internships and all those experiences definitely expected me to code be expected to already be able to code going into it.
Mhm.
So I would say that the most useful thing you get out of internships is definitely not the programming experience, but actually like just learning, how to work in the industry.
So you think that's like a big soft skill to expect, like
Yeah,
just how to be more collaborative, learning on how to fit into the industry setting. Are there any other
definitely.
soft skills, that you think are important to consider?
Definitely like for like I can kind of talk about this from my personal experience, but like I also interned at American Express, right? And I actually was fortunate enough to also receive a return offer for an internship next year, right? And I know lots of people who were definitely smarter than me, but also didn't get like return offers, right? And a big reason that my hiring manager and leader told me that why I got a return offer was because they really, really liked how I was able to collaborate really well with the fellow interns, even though everything was online, right?
Wow.
Like, so companies like really, really value you being able to collaborate with people, you being able to, speak well and articulate your thoughts very well,
Yeah.
right? Like it doesn't matter how good you are at programming or how much of a prodigy you are, right? If you can't like explain your thoughts very clearly or explain data science to like people who don't know data science too well, for example, if you're presenting um, to a board of executives, right, who don't know a thing about programming or data science, you need to be able to explain your thinking and your process without using all these technical terms, right? They need to be able to make sense of what you're doing. So
Mhm.
like skills like that are like really really high valued by companies.
All right. So just also like, do you guys use data visualization and data science too?
Yep. Like I mean, data science, right, is not only just about like, using the fancy machine learning algorithms and everything, right? But you also definitely need to, of course, explain it to people who don't know data science that well. And visualizations are also a big part of that, right? You don't create visualizations for yourself, you create them for other people to understand your work.
Mhm.
So, no matter what you do, like you'll probably have, like if you're in data science, you'll probably have to create visualizations, like even if they're not a part of your final product, like um, these visualizations can be really, really helpful for other people to understand, how effective your work was or things like that.
Right. Now, some non-technical questions. What do you enjoy the most about your job of being a data scientist?
What I like is, I mean, in particularly where I am working in, where I like machine learning, deep learning, natural language processing. Um, this like these sort of fields are like really, really young, right? So lots is changing from month to month, right? And at the same time, it's kind of a hassle to keep up with what professors and what universities are coming out with, like the latest and greatest state-of-the-art algorithms. But at the same time, I found it really, really exciting that almost like the entire industry like is a scramble almost every month, right?
Yeah.
Like like 1 month for example, right? Somebody will come out with a new machine learning algorithm that like boosts performance in different tasks, right? And then when this algorithm comes out, almost every company in the industry will be in a rush to like implement this algorithm into their own workflow
Yeah.
and getting it working so that way they can kind of maximize the performance. So I find that really really cool that the field is still developing and changing every day.
Right. And it's a growing field too, so there's new job prospects
Yep.
as well.
That is true. Like data science, what's really, really nice about it is like it pays really, really well because at least right now there is a much larger demand for data scientists than there is supply. Like
Yeah.
you don't have like that's the reason why I feel like at least right now you don't need a major in data science to become a data scientist. Like people who like studied physics and studied like biology and all these sort of things can become data scientists just by getting training on the job. So yeah, the demand for data science is greater than the supply right now.
Yeah. Um, what parts of data science do you find most challenging?
Most challenging. So like I think like especially for you guys who are like not familiar with data science too much, I think this might be surprising, but um like the most challenging part of data science is definitely not the machine learning part of it. It's actually what you do before that. So like when you first get a data set or you get a database,
Hmm.
how do you transform that data so it's usable by your machine learning algorithm. That kind of step is called data pre-processing, where you process it so that way it can be used by your machine learning algorithm. That part of the process is honestly probably like the hardest, and also um, the most open-ended, and also the most annoying and the most time-taking, like staking part of it. So like it's definitely like definitely the hardest part of the job.
So you find that like filtering the data out, that aspect most tedious?
Yep. Like another thing is like you're working in the real world, where real world data is like always really, really messy, right? So you have to figure out how do you want to deal with that mess? How do you want to clean it up?
Right.
Mhm.
Is it a big mess? Like lots and lots and lots of
Yeah,
data?
like you'll have like data like missing in certain columns. You'll have like numbers that just make no sense, that are like maybe like negative 999 or things like that. Like you just have to figure out, like, the thing is, like, a lot of this stuff, there is no right answer with how you deal with it, right? It's really, really open ended, and it's kind of up to you. So that kind of also makes it a little difficult, but also kind of fun at the same time. It's definitely like it's the most boring part of data science for sure,
Yeah.
and it takes the most time. But once you get past it, it gets like really, really fun getting to work with machine learning and all that.
Hmm. What are the biggest rewards you receive in the field of data science?
Sorry, what was that?
What are the biggest rewards you receive in data science
Biggest rewards? So like,
in general?
I mean, obviously one of them is, because of how popular data science is and how highly valued it is by companies, like no matter what company you're working at, like you're probably going to be making a good amount of money or a good amount of salary working for that company. So that's definitely something that's appreciated for sure. Another thing is you'll most likely just be doing interesting work, right? And also, I guess one of the nice things about data science, right, is you can be really, really flexible. Like I know people who are working in urban planning, in music, in biology, in all these sorts of fields, and they're finding ways to, combine their interests with data science. Like you don't have to be specifically really, really interested in data science to do in data science. You can be interested in another field and then apply data science to it.
Mhm.
So it kind of gives you a lot of flexibility with what you want to do with your career, and also what kind of work you want to do.
Yeah, that's true. Um, so what are some projects you are working on currently, like outside of school or in school?
Yeah, so one of them is, so I'm working on two right now, actually outside of school. One of them is I actually have created a time of basically a forecasting model for me with machine learning, where I'm able to predict the predicted price of Airbnbs in San Diego. So you can give the algorithm like how many rooms do you want, how long do you want to stay, when do you want to stay in the year, and then it tries to predict the price of your stay at this Airbnb. And now I'm actually trying to deploy that machine learning model and make a website out of it so people can kind of enter in, like what kind of Airbnb they want, and then the model will tell you right there, like how much will it cost.
That's cool.
Another one I'm working on is I'm actually messing around with classifying music. So like I'm creating a machine learning algorithm that is going to be able to basically take in like a 5-second snippet of a song and then classify like what genre of music they think it is: jazz, rap, rock, whatever.
Oh wow.
And the way I'm doing it is I'm actually using a machine learning model that's primarily used for actually handling text, right? But I'm adapting this method to see how well it works with like other types of data, which is like audio. So like I don't think anyone else has actually done this yet, so I'm like, kind of just messing around with it and
That's a
seeing
really
how it
cool.
works.
That's a really cool project. Could you speak a little bit more about the coursework in college? What's that like?
Yeah, so at least where I'm at, UC San Diego, data science is definitely different from a lot of other schools. A lot of other schools, data science, like a data science major will require you to take classes from the computer science department, take classes from the statistics and math department, and yeah, they basically just require you to take classes that already exist. At UCSD, for example, where I am, they have actually created entirely new data science classes where they just combine everything into one class, right? Into multiple and like a whole like series of classes, basically, right? So I've taken classes that, um, like my first data science class ever was teaching like basic Python and like um, AP statistics basically, where it was like teaching you how to do hypothesis testing and probability and how to manipulate data, things like that. Um, so like all the classes that I take are like really nicely curated data science where they'll just teach you like both a good combination of practical skills along with like also teaching you how to write proofs, prove things mathematically, all this sort of stuff.
Mhm. What is your favorite class that you've taken?
My favorite one was beginning of my second year. I took a natural language processing class. So
Mhm.
they taught us actually how to like interpret how to basically prepare text to be represented by the computer. Like how do you convert words to like numbers that would be interpretable by a machine learning algorithm, right? And then after that, what kind of algorithms can you use to analyze that, right? And then at the end of that class, I got to make a project where I was able to you could basically enter in a like Wikipedia article, like let's say a Wikipedia article maybe about like Nicki Minaj, right? And you can ask a question about Nicki Minaj, and then using this like article that you gave my machine learning algorithm, it would then search for the answer for that question
Mhm.
and then answer it. So I basically created like a question answering bot, which was really really cool.
Really cool. So it's kind of like with Google, right? Like you type in a question in Google
Yeah, it was like kind of like a search engine almost. Yeah.
search engine.
Hmm.
Yeah. My last question for now is, what do you wish you'd known when you were starting out in this career or role in data science?
Um. Hmm. So I guess one thing is you guys should not be afraid to like fail at least, right? I'm not talking about failing classes. Obviously, that's bad and not ideal, right?
Yeah.
What I'm talking about is like you should always try to put yourself out there and try to take advantage of as many opportunities as you can, right? Like for
Mhm.
example, a good example would be like try to go to your like if you guys go into college, right? No matter what field you go into, right? Attend like the career fairs and make use of all the networking and professional events there, right? And I know that from personal experience, like companies really don't care about first years, right? They're there to look for second year and third year applicants, right? But even if they might give you like the rejection, right, for you trying to get an internship or job there, like you still get valuable experience out of just talking to these type of people, right? And networking with them, right? So this kind of experience then better prepares you for next year when you might be better like then they might actually, want you, right? And you'll at that time you'll actually know how to actually talk to these recruiters and all.
Right.
So
Okay.
like don't be afraid to fail and take advantage of like all the opportunities that you can get.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. Okay. My last question actually was, could you describe a typical work day as a data scientist? Data scientist.
Obviously that's like I think that's it's different for like everybody, I think.
Yeah.
But from what I understand from like talking to other people in the industry, right? A lot of it is a lot like you have to attend a lot of meetings for sure. Like if you're in the data science world, right, you a lot of your work is being used to inform high level business decisions, right? So people above you are going to tell you what they want from your work. So you'll have to attend all sorts of meetings to understand um, deliverables. How do you want to communicate like your findings? Understand like what kind of methods you want to use to give them what they want. So a lot of it is like getting in like you'll actually spend most of your time working more in meetings,
Interesting.
and then programming in between those meetings to meet deadlines. But obviously the day-to-day schedule like definitely varies for everyone, especially from work from home now. Like everything's kind of thrown out the window.
Yeah.
Um, like people are way more like flexible with what they do. Like I know a lot of people who will like attend meetings, sleep between those meetings, and then just program at night basically. So like it's very very flexible right now. As work from home is becoming like the new normal. And it'll probably actually become like a way more like well accepted way of working in the future.
All right. Does anyone else have any questions before we wrap things up?
Yeah, so if there's like one piece of advice that you would give us as high schoolers who are interested in data science, what would it be?
I'd say like don't be restricted by just like the classes that you have, right? Obviously, you guys are like restricted by how much time you have, with high school. I know how stressful high school can be, but you guys should not be restricted to just learning what you guys have to learn in your class, right? There are so many good online resources for you guys to still be able to learn what you want to learn. Like I obviously gave a couple of websites here. You can kind of note them down for yourself to look at later. There are lots of places to be able to learn all these sorts of things, and you don't always need school to learn them perfectly. And obviously, everyone learns differently, but like um, definitely kind of like be curious on your own and try to learn outside of school.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hmm.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much, Tanveer, for your insightful data science presentation.
My pleasure.
Very interesting, and I think you brought up a lot of insightful aspects into the fields. And yeah, I hope everyone else was interested in data science as well. I hope that everyone got some insight into this field.
Yeah, so if anyone also has any questions, as I said, like I do have a LinkedIn as well, so you guys can feel free to just look me up on LinkedIn, Tanveer Mittal, add me. If you guys have any questions, you guys can always DM me, or any of that sort of stuff. And I also have an email if any of you guys are also interested in notes taking that.
Alrighty.